Hi everyone, back in another chess video. Today we're going to be looking at a game that I had just played. First I wasn't recording, but it is going to be a French and a specifically Tarrasch variation. So it starts with e4, e6. This is the opening to a French that can go into many different variations. I like to play d4, d5, and responding with knight d2. This is the Tarrasch. In this, white seeks to push this pawn, limit development of this knight, limit development of the light-squared bishop, put a knight on f3. This knight usually comes here. Queen often comes out. Exchanges for the d-pawn are often made, but it can take a couple different variations depending on how the opponent develops. So knight f6 is perfectly normal. You respond with pushing e4. The knight often retreats here because there really is just no other square that it can go to. Going back is just a very passive retreating move. Lets white get a bit more in development. It's a move, but the most common move you'll see is here. Although that does block in the light squared bishop, it's just a lot better prospects for the knight than going all the way back to its home square. So knight G to f3, c5, often trying to chip away at the center very quick in the French, and white often responds c3 to try to keep the center. You can swing a knight here in some situations, so oftentimes if here, and then people may go here, knight here. In this case, you can have the queen move here, queen b6, putting more pressure on this pawn. You can see this pawn getting pushed, and in this case, just knight back. A lot of times in the French that you have a closed center, these two pawns are going to try to run down the board, and black is going to try to play on the queen side, while white tries to play on the king side and get some momentum there. But for our game, I went, let me go back, after c5, c3, just supporting the pawn in the center, knight c6, putting more pressure in the center, and now you'll notice these two knights are also looking at e5. Bishop d3 is a move. What happens is if takes, a lot of times the queen will come here, and in this case, castling is normally the move. You will lose this pawn, not to the queen. You will lose this pawn, but then the knight swings out here, and the queen has to retreat, and white is in a better spot because you have much more piece activity. This bishop is in a really good diagonal. This center pawn is kind of hard for white to take, and black has much more limited development with where this dark squared bishop can go, and this light squared really isn't doing anything, this light squared bishop. Black can castle after getting their dark squared bishop out, but their position is very cramped and much more difficult to play. So in the game, after queen b6, I castle, takes, we go down this line. Now here, you're going to see it's still a book move. This is all actually opening theory. This line I'm fairly familiar with, not too well, but what you can do as white after the black queen retreats, they often still want to keep an eye on this pawn, so the black queen will stay here for a move or two, and either this knight or this dark squared bishop will come to c5. So there is a line that you want to know as white that starts with a3. Now, you're going to need to play a3 because let's say, black just plays a little bit passively with bishop e7, which is a perfectly fine move. It's excellent. It's a perfectly fine move. You can go bishop e3. If takes, if they get a little bit greedy, that's going to be a blunder. You can actually win the queen, and you're going to see the queen has nowhere safe to go. So oftentimes they just exchange for the rook. Now, the reason you play a3 is because, let's say you didn't, and you develop the dark squared bishop trying to kick the queen out of here. Queen takes a free pawn. You don't have this bishop move because the queen can come to a3 and can evacuate. So if you're ever in this variation of the French, which is very common when you're playing against the French, a3, and then let's just say a developing bishop move. You play your bishop. If they get greedy, you trap the queen. This I actually have run into. I have won a queen from going into this line. Oftentimes, let's say a3. If you go bishop c5, thinking maybe putting pressure here, getting the bishop to the most active square, then you can bring the queen out here. And this knight has really nowhere to go. So let's just say they castle. The queen a lot of times swings over here, and this light squared bishop becomes a really big threat, a really big asset for the white position. So queen b4, and then these bishops are just going to be staring down this side. The knight can come in. There's a lot of nastiness that can come in for the black position, or against the black position in this type of line. So bishop c5 is an accuracy, but people will play it. Knight c5 is best. It's still about an even game. So bishop c2, kind of pulling back, getting pulling back, keeping the bishop safe, keeping an eye on this diagonal and this diagonal. And then just a developing move, getting the light squared bishop out, maybe eventually coming here. Knight g5, putting some pressure along this diagonal. Maybe queen comes out. Queen g4. And let's say they kick you out, h6. We have a knight sack that we can do. I'm kind of going down this line that I'm not too familiar with. King takes f7. Bishop check. Okay. King g8, and then where? Oh, maybe is it another... okay, kicking the knight out, taking here. Interesting. Takes. They can't because it's going to be mate. And then b takes here. Rook b1. Okay, this is well off of kind of the path that we were on. So that was kind of just me seeing what the best lines are. But all right, so let me go back. Queen b6. I play a3. They play bishop c5, but let's look at... yeah, knight c5. Okay, then bishop back. All right. So bishop c5. I try to kick the bishop away with b4. It's an inaccuracy because in this you are supposed to play queen out and over. But my thinking was, let me get the bishop out of here. Let me get this bishop on this diagonal. That's what I was thinking during the game. Bishop e7, bishop e3, maybe kicking the queen out. Taking the open file with the rook. f6, trying to destabilize this pawn in the center. I think it's a bit weakening because you weaken this f7 square around the king when it's eventually going to castle kingside. It would take a couple more moves to castle queenside, and even still, this is a very weak diagonal, or weak file since this rook is here and there's no pawn here. So f6 in inaccuracy, weakening move for the kingside. Doesn't really destabilize much. Even if you push, I still have a lot of activity that I can rely on the king side. E takes f6. This might be listed as an inaccuracy, but okay, no, it's a good move. All right. Earlier when I was looking at this, it was listed as a mistake, but it's a good move. It's a good move. Knight takes. I plant my knight in the center. You can have the bishop put pressure here, but I'm really not too worried about it because I can support with this bishop. Castles. Getting my bishop back, looking to make a battery, and eventually looking for some type of checkmating ideas. Bishop d6, like I was saying, putting pressure on this undefended knight. You don't want to play f4 to support it, because even though the queen can come here and give a check and you can just move over, it's just a very weakening move. Limits this bishop's sight on here, and it's very weakening for the king side. So yeah, you're going to see it's an inaccuracy. Don't play f4 here. Very bad move. All right, so bishop d6, bishop d4, just supporting the knight and staying on a diagonal that aims at the black king, as opposed to going here where you're under threat of the rook and you're not really on a diagonal that is aiming at where your attack is going to be. Your attack is going to be towards the black king. So when you're thinking, how should I defend this knight? Defend in a way that leads that bishop to being still in the attack, and don't defend with a pawn that's going to weaken your king. So that's how you should be kind of thinking about how you can defend the knight. Bishop d4 is best. All right, bishop d7, eventually looking to come here. Queen b3, what I was thinking was a bit of a queen lift over here. I know I'm in a battery, but it's pretty easy to just stop it with g6. So I wasn't really expecting to get this. I was just kind of putting this threat here, but really I was looking to have my queen come to h3. Bishop takes. Yeah, g6. This is not the end-all, be-all to my attack. It's just going to let me basically maneuver my pieces and attack in a different way. So rook f7 is best, and white is slightly better. Not 100%. It's not +1, but rook, white is slightly better. They have much better bishop activity. This bishop is on a great diagonal. So let's look. A6, h3, a6 is what the engine is suggesting. Rook fe1, supporting the center, supporting this bishop. Rook c8. Let's see what else it suggests. Yep, sliding this queen over. Bishop b5. Yep, coming to that diagonal, the most active square for that bishop. Engine actually says exchange rooks. Queen takes. Let's see what else the engine likes. Pulling the bishop back. Bishop d4. I wonder why bishop d4. What's the idea there? Knight there. Queen e3. Maybe eventually coming here. Knight f4. King h2. Queen d7. Okay, so this looks like an even game. I'm like well into this line. It looks like just an even game. All right, back to our game. G6. Weakening move around the king. All these dark squares are weak. This square, f7, is weak. A very weakening move. This person pushed a lot of pawns in front of the king for really not a great reason. G6. Although I get the idea, you can block the attack. It's not best. I wasn't really going to be able to capitalize on this attack, but I wanted to at least put the threat there and kind of force the opponent to respond to it. Rook fe1, defending this bishop, possibly getting a rook lift in the future. A6, supporting this bishop on this diagonal. queen h3. Now staring at this pawn, maybe eventually coming here in the future. It's an inaccuracy, but it's still plus over minus, still plus 1.29 compared to plus 1.7 or 1.8. So what they would rather is queen g3, but honestly, both are fine. So queen h3, queen b6, looking to put some pressure here. It is a blunder because queen, let's just do queen's going to come in, and you have some sacking ideas here. Oh no, queen, I think it's queen h4. I don't know. What is queen h6? Let me... Bishop takes g6. I thought that was a little premature. H takes. And then... No. I think my engine is a little bit messed up. Queen b6. Blunder. Queen b6. Queen h6 is a miss. Oh, no. My engine is not acting right. Queen h4, I think, is the best move. Yeah, queen h4 is good and maintains. I don't know why I was saying plus 3.5. I don't think that's correct. Queen h4, because if you go queen h6, which I do in the game, you can fall victim to this tactic and lose your attacking chances. So that is the idea. Queen h3, still protecting f2 is the idea. I go queen h6 in the game. I didn't even think of this queen sack. So that's where I went wrong. Rook f7 is a blunder because of this bishop sack idea. Now, when you have a dark squared bishop staring into this corner and no g7 pawn, or at least an opening there, then you do have to think about this bishop sack on g6. Even if it's supported by a pawn, when it's not supported by both, even if it's supported by both, you do have to think about this, because what can happen is takes. Let's say you block, you can lose a piece pretty quick. So go back to the game. Rook f7 to blunder. I do the bishop sack. Bishop takes g6. It's a brilliancy, at least according to chess.com. And it creates such weaknesses in the king side. There's really not a great way that black can respond to this without being in a completely lost position. So queen takes, they do try that sack, which I didn't even see in the game. What I calculated was takes, check, back, here, check, takes, rook here, takes. I could just take, so they're not going to do that, but then maybe like rook here. And that's kind of what I was calculating. So I just sidestep my king, still attacking this rook, still attacking here. It turns out that king takes f2 is best, because here black is better, but I thought in the game I had better attacking chances just sidestepping and then putting a rook on f1. So I calculated that wrong. So I went king h1. Obviously, he took the bishop. Rook f1. And I'm winning, but not as much as I could have been had I calculated correctly. Rook h7 is a blunder because this pawn is undefended. So queen takes, and let's just say, rook g7, you take with check. and I win the queen. Rook h7, and this queen is still under attack, this knight's under attack, and I have, with all these weaknesses, I have the ability to take with check, so that's why this is a blunder. I think you can even just take that, take, and I think white would, yeah, white's still going to be winning. So that's why rook f1 is a blunder. And in the game, I do go down that line, and the opponent resigns pretty quick when this knight is going to be lost, and this bishop is pinned. So that's how this kind of game unfolded, with getting a pretty devastating attack on the king side after some pawns were pushed that weakened the king side so much. So to review, e4, e6, the Tarrasch, this specific variation with the bishop coming to f3 or bishop d3 is a move. It's a book move. You will lose this center d pawn, but you have so much compensation that it's an acceptable exchange. You can see black is still slightly better. Even before that bishop, that inaccuracy with the bishop, black has much better prospects with getting this queen out, and let's just say there, with getting this this queen out and over in the case of where the bishop is here, or just getting much better piece play with these bishops. This bishop pair is just a killer, an absolute killer. So weakening pawn push here sets up some ideas of having, you know, a kingside attack with this open file. G6, very weakening because my queen slides over, and there's just so much more attacking chances that white has than black has, and black just is way too slow and either doesn't recognize or doesn't appreciate the attacking chances and the strength of this light squared bishop, and the ability for these two rooks to come over, this rook to slide here, and then they eventually just make a couple of mistakes and get blown off the board. And in the end, they resigned, but it was going to be a loss no matter what. So, name of the game on this one, avoid pushing pawns in front of your king, because they just create so many openings and weaknesses that your opponent's going to have a much easier time attacking than you are going to have defending, and you won't have time to launch an attack of your own because the opponent will have so much easier of an ability to launch an attack on your weak king, and it's going to take longer for you to develop an attack to their stronger, more well-protected king. So avoid pushing pawns in front of your king if you can, and just know your opening a little bit better, because I was able to get a little bit better of an edge out of the opening after a couple, like a poor bishop move and a little bit sloppy development. That's the name of this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.